Carolyn's just showing your picture.
Yep, I'm on.
Well, that's a lot louder.
That's good. Good sound.
Here.
I'm sitting in the right spot.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started tonight. Mr. Sadoff, if you want to do the good news.
You bet. A little bit smaller list of good news this time. We had a 2-week Christmas break in there. I did get you a few things. The Skiba Honor Band is there. The 2021 Honor Band is listed. And then a few pictures of a life skills class activity that took place. And then a few pictures also of the Hour of Code, the Emerson K through 5th graders. And that's a pretty neat thing. If you get a chance sometime to pop in and visit with kids as young as kindergarten when they're coding and figuring out what actually goes into giving directions, for example, to how a game is played. And they start to realize on a very fundamental level how you write those directions so the game works. So just a few things there for you, good news.
Cool. Thank you. Any other reports from the board? Anything? Okay. Any public comment there?
Nope.
All right. We'll go ahead and move on to the consent agenda for this evening.
If nobody has any questions.
I have one question.
Okay, that's fine.
Nothing important, I mean, I just, nothing important, but the new hire on the special needs, she started the 21st, she already had her training in by then? Or?
We're working on that right now. There's actually, I put that return to learn update. There's
Oh, we can wait, I just.
yeah, no problem. We're looking at an on-site date of the 25th for her right now. She'll be doing some off-site training leading up to that. We're waiting on licensure from Board of Educational Examiners as well as getting those training pieces in place.
So do we have somebody that's gonna cover until she comes on then? So we have somebody
Yeah, we're
interim or whatever? That was my only question.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made by Ken to approve and seconded by Lori. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. All right.
don't believe we have any presentations for you tonight either.
Then we'll move on to the return to learn.
And just what I mentioned to Laura here a moment ago, we've got that verbal acceptance in place. She's excited to start wrapping up, completing her student teaching right now, getting the licensure things nailed down, just sent out kind of revised training schedule to her today, and then figuring out how exactly to cover. There will be a little bit of a transition period there as we onboard her. Reminder that we have our other remote teachers in place, and that January 21st will be a full day for our K through 5 students. That's a Thursday, and then going from there forward, every day except Wednesday will be a full day. Wednesday will still be a 90-minute early out. And then middle and high school at this time are still following the 90-minute early release schedule. We're awaiting some data on our remote advocates. We've been getting some reports here and there about their activity, and we're trying to nail down some data to gauge their impact and decide if those are positions we want to continue with past the end of the first semester. And we still have a secondary special education remote teacher posted. That's not a hire we've been able to make to this point. So not a lot new really in the return to learn, but just kind of confirmation of those pieces coming together.
So this is Carolyn. I got a quick question. Are we seeing success with teachers zooming in, or had they done much of that before? Like at the comment made in the.
I think we need to do more of it. We have had individuals have success with it. I know of a couple at the high school, they're doing it well. I think we need to make it a more widespread practice. That's something I've been talking to principals about. So there are people doing it with success, but I would like to get more people trying it.
Ken,
Are you set to go, if you like the data that you get from these advocates? Can you just continue on? We don't need to rehire them or anything?
I don't believe so. I think, we have people in place who really wanted to do it. I've heard some very good things about the people who are doing it. So I just think it's more of a checkpoint that we set up. We want to see that we're getting the results we need, because it is, it's an outlay from the general fund now that the grant money is gone. But I think we're ready just to continue if it's worth doing. Yeah.
I had a couple questions. Does anybody else has anything?
I do have a
go ahead.
question,
Go ahead, Sue.
Oh, Donna had reached out to me before the meeting and had just asked to verify within the elementary school for the reading specialist that they still kind of are done with their in-classroom responsibilities around 1:30, so they still have time to Zoom out.
I think that'll be the most common answer to that. And it could vary a little bit building to building. Like I know at one of our elementaries, the reading teachers had a plan they came to the principal with, where I think one of them is going to kind of serve remote and the others will do on site. But that is something I've reinforced with elementary principals. They know it as well, that
So there's not that same expectation to go to 305 with the reading specialist. They know they still have to serve
no,
remote.
and it'll be dependent on the number of remote kids
Right.
they have to serve, but they'll adjust their schedule accordingly.
Okay,
Yeah.
wonderful.
Same thing for specials. They would be adjusting the schedule.
Specialist teachers is a little bit different. I might let Mrs. Duran explain that, but that's going to be handled asynchronously. But go ahead.
They're reverting back to their 30-minute sessions, and the principals work together to identify those specialist teachers that have fewer sections to teach than others.
Okay.
And those identified specialist teachers will handle the creation of those learning tasks.
Okay.
They'll share them with those other teachers that have higher section numbers, and they'll put them on their class pages.
Okay.
Those remote teachers will do the assessments, and they'll collaborate together to then, when it gets to report card time, for the posting of grades.
Okay.
But those kids will stay rostered to their current specials teachers. Otherwise, they would all be flooding to one elementary, and it would change their home
Yeah.
building.
Okay.
So.
I have a question, and I think it fits in with this return to learn. I've been on the phone pretty much with a lot of staff members here for the last several hours leading up to this meeting, and regarding a presentation that I think was presented to all of them on class pages and quarantines. So just so I understand what's going on, could somebody explain that to me? Because I explicitly remember last board meeting asking Art how quarantine students would be handled, and you said, not verbatim, but essentially they'd be handled as any long-term absent with paper packets. So then I've been on the phone since 3:30 this afternoon with numerous teachers and buildings that have been giving us a presentation on class pages, and we're putting a ton of stuff on teachers' plates, and from what I'm hearing out of them, it's just, we take something off and we pile something back on. But if somebody could explain it to everybody, just so they know what's going on.
I'll start. I do remember making the statement that we treat them like any other long-term absence. Paper packets definitely can be part of the solution. If I indicated that was going to be the only thing we did with them, I didn't intend to. If that's what we took away, to handle that with paper packets.
That's what I took away from it.
Okay, because we have talked all along about them being able to get assignments from class pages. Now, I wasn't in that meeting. I don't know if you want to comment more on class pages and how that impacts quarantine students.
I have two 8th graders that are quarantined right now, and they were just told to stay in touch with their teacher, and they would make up everything when they got home, or they could go and see what they're working on and do it right off the computer. So that's all, they've not had any Zoom. It's just been them finding out what homework to do, and they'll catch up when they get back.
what I'm being told, and that's what I'm just looking for some clarification. What I'm being told by the teachers that I have spoken to is that teachers are expected to maintain their class pages and maintain a lesson for their in-person students and for possible quarantines if they don't have a quarantine student. So they're expected to put lessons on class pages for hypothetical quarantined students. And the ones I've talked to are just absolutely stressed that they're not gonna have time. The whole point, I thought, the whole point of the board in trying to hire these online teachers was to take responsibilities off the plate of the classroom teachers, which was accomplished, but it seems now it's more responsibilities being put back on their plate to maintain these class pages.
That's what I had a couple calls to, and one of the teachers had said that they felt like everything that was taken off the plate was now just put back on. They said that it would, as much time as it takes them to update that and maintain those class pages, you know, even if they don't have a quarantine student and stuff, that it was gonna be, to them, it was overwhelming. Like I thought this was supposed to resolve us and allow us to be able to teach the full day and not have to do that. So I did have the same.
And it just makes no sense to me, and that's why I want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly. The way it was told to me and the way that every teacher that I talked to, it was presented to them that they would have to update their class pages for both their in-person kids and any possible quarantine kids. I mean, I've seen a lot of things in my life that don't make sense, but putting out lessons for students who are not quarantined doesn't make any sense or any use of good quality time. And then
I agree that the
we had
conversation,
talked about,
I think they were supposed to be treated like it was a long-term illness, and I don't know that we made the jump that they're keeping their pages updated. I think it was some flexibility on how you handle long-term illnesses. Is that what everyone's remembering?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the discussion of class pages came up only if that's how the teacher chose to manage the absences.
yes.
But if the teacher chooses to manage the absence with packets, other forms of communication, that was up to each individual teacher. But that if they choose not to use class pages, that was up to each teacher.
I guess what I'm asking, or Ned, maybe you can answer, I'm not making this up, this happened. Meetings occurred in the buildings this week and principals spoke and told this to their teachers, this happened. So I'm just looking for some clarification because this seems totally opposite of what our conversation was last week.
So the teachers have already been told this week?
Yeah,
Yes.
the ones I spoke with were just told it today. And that's why I got a call.
I can speak a little bit to it. I wasn't at the meeting, but I do know that, I know we talked last time a little bit about what you're talking, Ben. I know we also spoke about the concern of not losing ground where we had gained ground with class pages, and we've trained and retrained, and we don't want to lose that ground, have to retrain a third time when our teachers our students get their devices. I do know there was a presentation, and it was a simplified version of a class page. Now, I can't answer the question as far as were they told they had to do this for when they don't have quarantine kids. I don't know. I don't recall that. I wasn't part of that conversation. I have to be at the building. But as far as still putting stuff on the class page for quarantine kids and being able to access resources, that's true. I mean, it's there.
How much time do you feel like they should be taking to do that?
I know it's a real, again, having not been there, but I know it is a simplified version where they put all on one page. Monday, they list out math, reading, whatever. Tuesday, and I can't tell you what the time is on that. But I do know it's a simplified version. I have seen it, but I wasn't at those presentations.
The expectation was not set that they would create content, they wouldn't be making videos and posting videos and those kinds of things. It would just be the same kinds of things that, as a parent, if my third grader was out for whatever reason and she was missing something, or even if she was struggling at something, I'd like to be able to go to class pages and and know what they're doing, whether it's additional worksheets or today we're learning, subtraction or something, but I'm not looking for a video, and that wasn't the expectation that was set with the teachers to create additional content only for the quarantine students.
So is this just a summary page then that they should be doing?
That's what I've seen, yes. And I do know that the conversation was, not to do Zoom meetings. They don't need to do Zoom meetings with the quarantine students. They don't need to do screen recordings or whatever else, those things that take a lot of time. It was really designed to kind of streamline and say, here's what you need to keep up on.
But is it correct that teachers are expected by Monday at 8 a.m. to have a week's worth of lessons on that format for their in-person students and their hypothetical quarantine students? And see that?
I don't have any quarantine students. I don't know that there was an expectation set that there had to be something. I don't know that there was an expectation set that it had to be different than, correct me if I'm over speaking, but I didn't think that we had set the I wasn't in the meetings either, that it was going to be a lot of extra work. Just like, here are the things that we're doing this week, and it could be the same.
What I was told by the teacher, maybe was that the administrator said that could happen at any time. A quarantine student could happen at any time. So you need to always have your class page updated with the week, what's going on in the week.
Which doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because depending on who the quarantine student is, you would think your lesson could vary.
I just went in my conversation with the teachers. I was trying to understand what was actually going on first, but then I was trying to think, like, I felt like we were duplicating the work. Like, if they're going to do a packet and do the class page, like, I felt like it was duplicating the same work. So that was confusing to me. And then I was trying to wrap my head around, like, how much time are we expecting them to spend on this? Because they all seemed instantly like, holy cow, we're gonna have to do this all again. Like, this is what we've been doing. Like, what? I thought we weren't gonna have to do that type of a thing. So that's where, like, if we're saying this is like, they should be spending 15 minutes on this, put up a summary page and that's it? Or are we saying, they need to spend 2-3 hours on this thing every?
That was not my impression.
Okay.
From what I've heard and what little work I've done.
Yeah, I think maybe somebody probably should
I'm a
clarify
little
that.
confused too then, because so if we're doing that at the elementary level, at the middle school, then they're not going on Power School? Because my 2 kids were told to stay in touch with their teacher, you won't be put in with the other kids.
I don't
So
know who
what,
those teachers, you're talking middle school teachers?
yeah, 8th grade.
I don't know why that would be the case there. I don't know.
So they haven't, all they've been doing is checking their class page and not zooming or anything.
Well, they won't be with remote learners. That's true. At all levels, quarantine kids and remote learners are going to be on separate tracks. Quarantine kids are going to stay in pace with their classroom teacher.
Yeah, but they didn't even get paper homework. They were just told to stay in touch with their teacher, and then they catch them up at the end, so that's why.
Well, I also know too, I'll take all the COVID stuff out of this, their teachers deal with absent students differently, right?
Yeah.
Like, we had one person that said, here's your work, I give it to you a week in advance, you can get it in almost before you leave, wherever, if they go on vacation, whatever. And then we've had other teachers say, I'll give you work when we get caught up, so I know how much we get through in class, and I know how we progress through class. So it could be on that instance that different teachers have liberty to
Yeah,
deal
but we're
with
looking at
absent
the end of
students differently.
semester right now. This is the end of semester, you would think we would have more homework. I'm just curious, they asked me and I just said, stay in touch with the teacher, I guess, I don't know.
I guess my biggest concern of all of this is that the teachers I spoke to, it is going to be quite a bit of work from what they're telling me, and they're being basically told how they will input it, how it will look, which makes no sense to me.
So do we need
Well, I
a
know that-
re-education of administrators?
I can speak to part of that. I know the elementary principals met, and because they were trying to get consistency, part of the feedback they've gotten from remote learners, and in particular, those previously when we had quarantine kids who got thrown in with remote, well, if the parents hadn't been doing remote along the way, that was kind of culture shock So I do know the conversation was make it consistent, easy to find. When Ray's talking about like a summary page or a week at a glance or something, I know that that was the motivator behind what the elementary principals were talking about.
I mean, I don't wanna, I guess I don't wanna say that anybody's blowing it out of proportion necessarily, but I will say, what I saw did not look like it would take hours to do. I mean, it really was a summary page. Maybe that's something we just need to.
But are you
show you
teaching a
guys.
class full of students every day and then doing that? Was there any teacher's input on that?
They-
I mean, I haven't even got to talk to the teacher I know the best, that lives on the same roof as me. I've been on the phone all day. I don't even know what her takeout on this is, but they're upset. You got a lot of teachers in this district right now that are at their wits' end, that have been piled on and piled on and piled on, and we tried to take some responsibility off them with this online learning. And then this happens, and that's why I'm asking for some clarity. I don't fully understand it in the conversations I've had, and it's a little concerning to me that nobody in this room can really answer what these meetings were about.
Well, and my understanding is that when a parent came and had some concerns and voiced those at a school board meeting about the class page design, when their student got quarantined, there were some difficulties with that. And from that standpoint, Ray had a meeting with the elementary principals to discuss those issues. My understanding from that is that one of the building principals took some initiative and got the principals together, and they brought their collaborative and innovation teachers, at least one of the C&I teachers, with them to a collaborative meeting to talk about the redesign or those issues Art just mentioned, to come up with what might be an answer for that. And then that is what then was taken back to the buildings, is my understanding, that clarity of how those things transpired.
I believe there were 2 CNI teachers from each building, I believe.
So I think,
Those are
so
normal
where
classrooms.
did the miscommunication
Yeah,
break down from when we passed this? And really, we passed them going back to 305 kind of with our plan, and we didn't get bombarded with a whole lot of emails. So what's happened between the time that everyone saw this coming down the pipeline and now that has kind of blown up? Where do we need to re-communicate, or what needs to happen?
I think somewhere, so we've decided that we're gonna have one-to-one devices from even before COVID, we're gonna have one-to-one devices. And to utilize those devices, Class Pages is how you share content. So Class Pages is never going away. And so what Ray's trying to say is we've made a lot of progress really quickly because we had to, but it's never gonna go away. So what they've tried to collaborate on is how can we make every page look very similar, because the parent feedback that we got was that he couldn't find things in different places. So the direction that the CNI teams, the CNI teachers and the administrators came together, they said, okay, these are some things that could be very easy to make all pages look similar. So I don't know why some teachers thought that Class Pages were going away. That's never been a thing. They're here. The effort that I would expect a teacher, even if they have a couple of quarantine students, to put into their Class Pages isn't significant. When we come back to school full-time in the fall and every student has a device, Class Pages is still going to be part of that expectation. Not Zooming with students, not, creating content and your videos at midnight and posting because your students aren't here, but Class Pages is a thing. And that's, I think, part of the miscommunication. And, some people can change easily and some people struggle with it.
I think maybe a lot of them that or whoever, the ones that have talked to us and stuff, are thinking that it's gonna take a lot longer than maybe what you guys are thinking. So I don't know if there's
I
a way.
would love for them to let us know, and we'll help them with training. We'll help create templates if there are templates that can create and help streamline that process.
And
In your
hopefully,
guys'
when these building meetings occurred, were they sharing these concerns with their principal?
I'm sure.
Okay, because I hope so, because that's the most immediate.
I guess I would just ask that you guys maybe go back to the drawing board and just seek input from the teachers, because it's easy for people who don't do the job to say, that's not that much work. Sometimes not the same perspective from somebody doing the work. And perhaps this isn't the right time to roll out this whole Power School thing. We're asking teachers to teach in a pandemic and make sure kids have masks on and make sure they socially distance and do all this other stuff we don't normally ask them. Maybe this isn't the time to ask them to try this too. I don't know, but I guess I was on the phone for 2 hours coming into here, talking to a lot of people with some concerns. And I hope that we can go back to the buildings and the administrators and talk to the teachers and maybe get their perspective. They're the ones in the classroom doing this in the midst of a pandemic. Maybe we pick a different time to roll out.
Was this all one school, Ben? Is this all one school, or was it?
All the elementaries. I heard from every one of them. So.
I would just reiterate on behalf of those elementary principals is that they did have teacher representation there with them. These were CNI teachers who also may or may not have more of a fast learning curve. I don't know, but they definitely had that effort to get that teacher input. But I'm sure, as Ray had met with them to talk about the class pages and to try and resolve some of the parent concerns about design, that is a definite point that can take back and listen more.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good teachers out there that have been with this district for a while who are stressed. Their plate is heaping full. We're asking them to do a lot. Things like this I don't think help. There was definitely a lot of passion in the people I talked to today, and I enjoy hearing from them. And it was concerning because
I would know too, and this is not a point, and I'm not pointing finger at anybody, but we had a system that was working pretty well too with the additional time we were giving them, and going back full day, that's a stressor as well. And that was a board decision and priority too. So I do think we need to be careful about pointing fingers at all levels, because I can tell you we don't have any administrators that are not working hard as well, or that don't listen to staff, or that don't care about staff. And I
just want to clarify, I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is, well, there's some stress in this district right now, and I explicitly remembered asking, would quarantine students be treated like absentees? And I was told yes. And I think it was a surprise again to these teachers that this is now what's being asked of them. It just seems to be some communication barriers.
One thing I'll just add there is I do know that principals have been very clear that even when we come back and we separate them out, the class pages were not going away. I mean, I know they've been clear on that, and they've said that. So it might not look like it did before, but I mean, I do want to let you know that was said.
But a teacher can choose right now not to deal with class pages and really do the packet work if that's what's working for them right now.
I don't know that that's what the message has been.
So how do we can sit here and talk all night. How are we going to solve this problem? I mean, obviously, Ben and Rob has had phone calls. We need to solve it. We need to go back and.
I just want to know how long it's going to take them. Like, that's what I want to know. Like, how long are we really talking, like, to do this?
You said something about a template.
Because the ones that I was talking to, they felt like it was going to be in excess of 2 hours to do all this kind of stuff, the way it was presented to them.
I guess I don't see this forum as that solution piece, because we now know that this is the concern, is still the amount of time per teacher. I really think it will go back with Ray and the elementary principals and maybe those CNI teachers in order to gather some more information on range of time. I think too, perhaps that when we say that language that they would be served like absenteeism students, that vision or paradigm of what that looks like shifted when we got into return to learn. Because when we are on site in our return to learn plan, it talks about student illness and if somebody's ill and how you would maintain that class page information for them. That is different than it was in the past, considering that we are in that pandemic mode with that. So that is I can see how that mental model of what that would look like could have been heard differently for different people based on that language. So it's worded differently in the return to learn plan than it would have been in the past. So I think clarity for that and some more ongoing work to address any of those time issues.
Yeah.
Because the template, Sue, that we're referring to is like a common structure on the class pages. So their week at the glance would all be in the same spot, no matter what page a parent goes to. It's right there the same way, and they don't have things that look like they're all over the place. So
To answer your question, Rob, on the time, I mean, I don't think it's anything we can't get an answer to and figure out what would we expect that time.
I mean, I can tell you the intent is not to have teachers spending hours doing that.
Exactly.
Okay.
I mean,
I can't tell you that it would take 10 minutes versus 15,
Yeah.
but we can figure that out.
Yeah.
And get an answer. But definitely the intent's not 2 hours.
And if any of the people that have contacted you are struggling with the technology or want more help or think it isn't going to take 4 hours, please let us know so we can get them the support they need to train them or help, like you said, create those templates. But push them back towards us or towards their administrator or something so we know who they are and can help calm their nerves.
Anything else, Ben or Sue?
I have one more question about
Okay.
return to learn. Is there, I've had a lot of phone calls about the middle school going back to normal return at 3:05 Is there, are we working towards that? I've had lots of parents call me, and my daughter even came home telling me that was what was happening, and I was like, oh.
well, I've told principals, keep working with and encouraging your staff to figure out ways it could happen, because it could happen. So there aren't any concrete plans there, and I don't have answers to some of the hurdles at those levels that we've been able to find at the elementary, but I've told people it could happen, so that's what we're working toward.
Okay.
So I wouldn't be surprised, I guess, if administrators were telling teachers that and they're working on it and thinking about it, that probably is getting relayed or seen somehow by students. So,
Okay.
They're working on solutions, I think.
Okay.
And that zooming in, then
Yeah.
that's that technology is
That
there.
would be a part of it. I don't know exactly the technology place where we're at. I know we have tried some different microphones and things. We've talked about some of it just from a process standpoint, how you utilize your interactive flat panels. I can't speak too intelligently to the technology. Do you want to jump in on that, Ray?
Yeah, we've got a couple different options we're exploring, and that's part of those are the external mics. Some of those are cameras and mics that are combinations to use with the interactive flat panel. So we're kind of just exploring a couple different options there. It's definitely a possibility.
When you talked earlier about that, you would like to see more zooming kind of happening into the classrooms. What's our plan to go and see that happen more? Like do we have a plan in each of the middle school and high school buildings, or do we have a plan as in a couple of English teachers, history teachers? Like, do we have a plan when you say you'd like to see it happening more?
Yeah, I don't have a plan beyond me encouraging the principals to talk to staff about that being a priority and to start practicing. So I don't have a department by department or content area plan. I haven't said, by this date, I want 2 of your English teachers to have tried it or whatever. I don't have that level of specificity.
Anybody else on anything on that front? Anything, Carolyn?
No. Like I said, I think that just setting expectations and maybe, yeah, I can see how it maybe got twisted around or, maybe, yeah, it's complicated.
For all this, because that's the other side of the coin, Sue, you're talking about, we want to make progress, but if the secondary principals or I put down this requirement, you're going to Zoom once a week or something, you may very well get calls about that. We're already tapped out. Now you're putting this on me. So, it's difficult and not to put the blame anywhere, but the stressor of coming back full days of the elementary, okay, that's a piece of it. If we're talking about teachers being stressed because we had a return to learn plan that people had settled into fairly comfortably. And yes, we're asking a lot of people, but now we've got, anytime you have those points where you're making a change or you're trying to optimize or make something more efficient, some people experience that as stress. So.
All right. 2021 student fees is next.
You can see the information that was provided. Typically, we do a 3-year rotation on increases, and this would be the 3rd year, so it would not increase, or that's what we're suggesting. So, any questions on anything?
Not to increase it?
Not to, it'd be remain the same.
Is the plan to increase next year, like up $5 like we have in the past?
Yeah.
Or is it?
That's what we'll see where we go.
Okay.
But yeah, that would be the plan.
Okay.
I think it's a good year to not increase it because there's a lot of people under financial stress this year. And even going into next year. I mean, I think it lines up well with that aspect.
Is this a subject that needs a motion?
Yes.
Yes.
I would move that the student fees for 21-22 remain the same.
Okay. Motion made by Ken,
I'll second.
seconded by Sue. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. All right, next is the 3A substitute teacher rate.
After reviewing some of the neighboring districts, a recommendation is made to increase our substitute pay rate from $120 a day to $130 a day to just stay competitive with the subs in Milwaukee, Carlisle, and all over the metro area. You can see the details. We haven't made an increase since the 2018-2019 school year. And our 190 for long-term subs is still competitive.
Are you talking effective next school year or second semester?
July 1st, the next school year. Yep.
So we have to vote on this too. I'll make a motion. I don't do very good at this, but I'll make a motion to increase it to the 134 per day.
130.
130, sorry, 130 per day. Leave the long term where it is.
Okay, motion made by Lori to increase. Second motion. Seconded by Ben. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next is the monthly financials.
You'll see on there that the October 2020, we received our first half property taxes. We are trending, if you look from year to year, October 2020 to October 2019 in the first balance sheet, that we're about $500,000 low, lower than we were, but we're holding in the general fund. I guess we just, we watch as we go. The good news that we just received today is we've got the second round of federal funding for COVID. We're receiving just under 1.2 million. So that will help us. Part of that I think will help so that we wouldn't have to go to the Sbrc for funding, possibly. So
That's already pretty much been spent.
I haven't done the actual, I just received it. We do need to attend a meeting with the DE virtually to see what we can spend it on. I believe that it's the same things we could spend it on before, but before I know that, I'm not gonna start recording everything.
But our expenses have been such that it would eat that up.
The biggest chunk will be computers when they finally get here, hoping before the end of the fiscal year.
Are we still doing free meals for everybody?
Yes,
Yeah.
free meals for everybody through the summer, through the fall.
That includes the summer?
It's the same.
Typically, if we do a summer program, that's what it is. It's all free meals.
It's all
So,
meals.
And you said for comparison, this is 4 times
This is 4 times what we received previously, over 4 times. We received just under 250,000, and this is 1.193 is what we're receiving. So
You made the comment that this might keep us from going for the SBRC. Do you want to kind of explain
the
what
school budget
that means?
Yes, the school budget review. So what we've talked about in the past, whenever we're going to get down to a couple times when we're going to talk about SBRC applications in this specific meeting, we can request budget authority. We can spend the money, and then we can request budget authority. So if we didn't receive this money and we could, and we still showed that we had this deficit spending that we were dealing with COVID, we can request that from the SBRC. So we are held harmless in the budget side of it. We would still, it would be a local decision, meaning the board to tax to get the cash back. That's what we need to do. So.
But getting the new COVID money might keep us away from doing
It might keep us away from that. I haven't done the actual calculations yet because I want to wait to see what they're.
And that whole 1.1 million goes into this year's budget.
Goes in this year's budget, yeah. Yep.
So if it was a non-COVID money coming in, the only way to get that money back is to tax?
Like
After a certain
what we're talking about for tonight, there's a couple things. So the SBRC amount for that, so it's a small amount for admin costs. Technically, yeah, you'd ask that back. And it would be cash that the district would have to.
Probably a good parallel, a bigger example from earlier when you approved the authority request for our special ed deficit, for example, the SBRC. Okay, we spent $700,000 more than we received special ed funding. We asked for the authority, the spending authority to make up for that. And then when we get to budget building time in the spring, we look at the tax levy and we see, okay, how much can the budget support for us to levy back on that? So, when John talks about the budget, that's the spending authority, the budget authority, and then the actual money is a separate piece.
Okay.
And I'll explain that as we get into the budget, we'll show the different ways that we can increase. A lot of times, there's not a lot of budget change that you can actually do within there's about 3 or 4 different entries anymore that we are allowed cash reserve management, cash reserve for several different things. And that's where we talk about that as a board. So hopefully the board, that budget process starts the end of this month. So we'll get more information.
Okay. Anything on the next page too, John?
You can kind of see that October represents about a third of our budget. So we're under that. Besides the support services is a lot of our facilities and which follows a 33%, they would be 12 months in a year. But that also has other things in there as well, meaning it could be our nurses, we added a nurse, that was one of the things that Art and I talked about and that we talked about as being a COVID expenditure because that probably wouldn't have happened without COVID, made it an easy, so we can code her salary to the new monies that we are receiving. So some of those pieces of the support services are increases and supplies from the facilities. Obviously, that's where all that expenditure is coming from. So
the other column there?
The other column is our bonds and our debt. So what's confusing about that is the certified budget for 2019-2020 includes the 2 bond refundings we did. So it becomes it's a booking. It goes in and goes out. So but we have to show that it's going out. This is the expense side showing here. But it's not showing very much expenditure yet because it happened throughout the year and towards the end of the year that we actually did the bookings. So then when you get to the 2020 year, right now, we're probably going to increase it because we just did that bond refunding and you don't know what that's going to be when we start the year.
Yeah.
We'll add that as an amendment
towards
the end of the year. So that will probably increase at some point. I've said this several years now, we won't have a bond to refund, but they keep proving me wrong because the rates keep going down and have gone down immensely since for
Still
5
works.
years. So I never thought I could get this one.
I
So
know.
anyway, so that's kind of explains that. And if you get to the, it's hard to see in the cash flow, the last one, that we're probably mirroring probably the 4 years back.
Yeah,
I mean, we're following it, that same path and that same
Right.
trajectory. And we, again, when we get to the budget, we'll talk through about, this is cash, not budget. So cash, we can reclaim that as needed.
yeah.
Any questions?
Would have been very the 2015-16 school year.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, any other questions for Jonathan?
I'll move acceptance of the monthly financial reports.
Motion made by Ken, seconded by Lori. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next is 2021-2022 budget tax valuations.
So we received this, I called them immediately because I was very interested in why we had such a drop in our TIF. The comment, I mean, right now they are saying that is correct. I mean, if you look to see 20 years ago, we're into that 20-year mark where we're gonna see things start to drop off. But to have that big of a drop was surprising to me, so they're checking it. But right now, that's what's holding, so that gives us more budget money for other things, you know, or budget, or I would say valuation to go against the tax, our tax rate. So 3.14, is decent. We've had better, we've had worse, so you can see the history there. This is more for information.
So they're saying the TIF is just running out on some ask whatever projects or.
They mentioned Hillcrest, which I thought was it. I thought that there was older ones than that because Hillcrest isn't that old, I didn't think. But they're looking into it because I question it right now. I wanted to share with you what we have right now, and that would be what we go forward with, barring any change that they. Sometimes there are changes. I'll keep you apprised if there are.
Any questions on that? Anything else? Okay. 2021-2022 modified supplemental amount request for dropout at risk.
And this is what we were just talking about. So we will, we recommend that you approve for us to submit the 2021-22 modified supplemental amount, which is allowable growth for the 1.224907 for dropout prevention application. You can see below how that calculates. We, as a district, have to have a 25% share on that. The very bottom number is identified possible dropouts, K-12. And that's calculated through our special ed at-risk person. They share that information.
So is this is additional money then?
So this is additional budget authority. Again,
Okay.
so then going forward, then this would be this would be one of the things that we do in our budget, where the 1.2 million would need to be cashed, put in through cash as well, So this is an annual thing that we do. And when I do all the calculations, we are within $5,000 of all the 6 different categories, within $5,000 of the budget. And that's an estimate. So we're holding our own with that. Some staff changes, retirements have helped that, because before we thought we would be over, but we've been pretty good as we move forward.
This would require board approval.
Questions on that?
I'll move approval to submit the 21-22 modified supplement amount for dropout prevention as requested.
Motion made by Carolyn,
I will second.
seconded by Ken. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 6-0. The next is the SBRC application for special education administration cost at Grantwood.
So Grandwood is in Woodward Granger, as the comment, as the information sheet explained. We are able to get admin costs back, not very much, but every little bit. Like I said, we usually ask for the small parts that we can as allowable growth as we can get back. So it's just under $3,000 we can get for this admin cost. They divide it by how many students that they serve.
So is this the first time we've had a student there? Because I don't remember this before.
Last year was the first time, and Grandwood is a relatively new group up there, so last year was the first time.
Okay.
I'll make a motion. The SBRC amount of $2,909.51 for our portion of special ed administrative costs.
Motion made by Ben,
Second.
seconded by Lori. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Okay, then we have the board finance committee report. So,
I'm gonna let Jonna, can Jonna just maybe get an update with the estimates? About payment.
okay,
With the REC.
the REC, yeah.
Well, they meet 3 times a year, I believe, and the REC, actually, it was a very positive meeting in the fact that they have increased both 2021 receipts and 2022 receipts. Just by looking, I mean, as they look forward. So the new estimate is, 296 million above 2021, which is a 3.7% increase, which is a positive look as we look at our state economy. Our state coffers are full right now. All the rainy day funds are full. So and it talks about the different, what makes this stuff up, the strong ag sector and the good manufacturing, financial, and insurance sectors. So more information than anything, but it was timely when we met, that we had just met and shared this information. So there's more information for that. Is we want to talk about the enrollments.
I think it might be good to explain to the rest of the board what's going, what we kind of foresee.
Okay, but as you have read in there, our enrollments, we have a very large senior class this year. Our senior class is the highest, is the largest right now in the district. Our kindergarten classes have not been historically as high. I estimated in the documents that you received, there's a current enrollment, the first 2 pages that are yellow and blue. The second 2 pages are preliminary for 2021-22. And then the final is IASB's estimate on what it would look like for next budget year for 2023. So I estimated a 50 student decline, just as a ballpark. But what you need to think about is as you look at that last column on the IASB sheet, we are guaranteed a 1%. You get a hold harmless for 1 year. But if you have to make bigger cuts, you need to watch that, to see, do we need to be planful? So as we look at our enrollment next fall, it may be that if it's going up, we may be fine, we may be all right. But when you look at that kindergarten and 12th grade swing, there could be an issue. I mean, not that I told Art it's a cliff, but I don't know that it's a cliff, but we don't know that for sure. I just want you guys to be aware of that as we look towards the next year, and then as we look for budget issue that might come out because of that.
And the thing I'd like to point out is it is in the Heck, I think I saw it on the national news about people holding back kids with COVID with kindergarten. So I think our kindergarten enrollment next year is kind of a wild card.
Right.
And that's the hold harmless year. That's what we're in right now.
Well, right now, right now, FY '21, so if you look at that sheet so Ray, can you go to it's an orange and keep going.
Horizontal.
You look at the FY 2021 year that we're in. Right now, it's a little bit increased because we see it's a 1.37 increase, so we got a little bit of a growth because I think we were up 15 students.
Okay.
So, and again, that's the 2.3%. Now, next year, you'll look at the 2022 estimated and 2023, they're estimated at 1% allowable growth. We tend to think that might be larger than this because of the net student in the state is reduced. So they might increase it this next year. We don't know.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, that's, just to elaborate on that a little bit, across the state, there's a decline in student enrollment. We were up 15.81, but all of the students within Iowa, enrollment is down. So that means the state supplemental aid will cost less. You know, 2% increase in state supplemental aid based on fewer students will cost less. So there's a thought that because coffers are full, as John has said, and because the revenue estimating conference was pretty positive and student enrollment is down in the state, there's a thought that there could be a little better state supplemental aid than there might have been otherwise. So they may settle on a little higher percentage.
I think something that I think we talked about this, I can't remember, was just, trying to see the best way to get families to come to Indianola, to try to help us grow our student population. I think it was the city's numbers were a little higher than what our numbers have been trending. So to me, you could probably take a few different things from that, but I think it would be interesting to find out, how we find out ways maybe that we could figure out to get more families here. I think the important thing is to get them here before their kids get into the education, like the levels of education where they're going to be in kindergarten and first grade. Because after they get kind of put, some family gets going, they usually stay put unless it's a job change or something. So ways to attract families to Indianola to try to help grow that student population. The cool thing is I spoke with a real estate agent today, one that does a ton of business here in Indianola and in the greater metro area. And that person said in their conversations over the last 3 or 4 months with different families that have been moving to Indianola, those families have come from other cities outside of Indianola. And in speaking with those families, there was a lot of frustration about their students in other districts, the in and out that other districts have experienced, and they communicated to that real estate agent, oh, you should be so glad that you guys are in Indianola, and not the districts that they were coming from. So the Indianola, or this real estate agent wanted me to express that, like, that is a positive thing that's out there right now in the public, that Indianola's done a great job of keeping their students in the district and in learning right now. So I think that should be something that everybody in this district should be able to pat themselves on the back, because it's in the perception of the public, it's a huge headache. And she said a lot of times I spend a lot of conversation with families, and all it is, and that's all they're telling me, is how big of a headache schooling is right now for them. And she thinks that this is causing some families to look towards our district because of how well it's been handled. So.
I have a quick question on that. When we finish our online program, that's a high school based program, correct?
Correct.
Are there any talks down the road of making, like, Indianola Community School District have a full kindergarten through 12th online program?
And I can let Annette speak to this a little bit too, or Ray, because there's a big technology aspect to it, but it's been, it's very, very time intensive to write your own
Oh, yeah.
quality aligned classes. I mean, we've spent 2 years and had some folks working very hard to write those classes of your own. Now, Annette was just talking about a move between the state and the AEA to build out more classes that people can just pull from. Now, I don't know if that's the same quality as what we've been writing, but when I think of the time it's taken to get the high school component of that going the last 2+ years, it may take a really long time to do that K-12. I don't know if you want to weigh in on that at all, Matt, or?
I think it's very important to consider in light of facilities, because even businesses at this point have seen that a lot of work can take place without workers on site. And I think if you structure that correctly and somebody has that space at home, you could have that possibility of developing a K-12 online program. And some of that, though, at this point, which could change, is whether you would identify that as a separate school. Right now, ours is not, so kids can go in and out as needed, and you want that flexibility because you can't enroll in both at the same time. But towards the future, that's why we started having those conversations about what is that vision? Where are we going from here with blended learning? And how do we create even more types of content for kids so it's more personalized for them? So.
You guys like where they're able to come in and out of like being at home and then in, that way it gives them the opportunity to.
In and out in the sense of, let's say a student is on site and they're in their classes, and then they have a need for either remediation or acceleration, or they need a course that we don't offer, or maybe a foreign language, giving multiple options of online and brick and mortar on-site options. And or it could move to all full online too, but it depends on the kids, and we talked about that before too, is the needs of kids are all different in terms of connection with adults and motivation and, school experiences. For some kids, they need that, and others, they feel like they're perfectly fine without that. So I think the word for the future is choices.
All right. Thanks, Annette. Thanks, Sue. I've lost where we're at.
John, just a few minutes.
Okay. Do we need to, we did approve letter D, and we're on the finance, okay.
Yep.
So we're on, anything else from finance committee? No. Anything else from you, Carolyn? Donna?
No.
Not here.
No, I just thought she'd
All right.
explain it better than I would.
He did.
I know.
All right. Next is the facilities committee meeting report.
We were lucky. Bernie showed up for our meeting, gave us an update, and all of the things that he got us some prices on, some ballpark pricing, he's trying to get that specific, are things he has talked about. Because the things that they have budgeted, that have been budgeted for, and there is the money there to do, in either the PEPAL fund or the SAVE fund, are the gym floors being redone, the painting, the bleacher seat replacement. I think we've talked about all these in meetings. If not, just let me know. The floors of both gyms, the painting of the walls of both gyms, bleacher replacement in the north gym. In the auditorium, as long as the seats are out, what else needs to be done? He had a great story about he made a mistake of just asking the theater managers what they'd like. And 12 sheets of paper later, they finally boiled it down. But the new seating going in, there's some carpeting going in, it's a good time to paint it. There's things that are needed, we had no, I don't think anybody would know. A second catwalk ladder, a repair over the orchestra pit cover, ability to get to some of the spotlights, all the things there. It's kind of a renew and refresh, doing a good job on that one.
Hey, Ken, what does anticipated district self-performing mean? What is?
I was just about to get to that.
Oh, good, okay.
Speaking of anticipated district self-performing items, estimated 200,000. These are things like lighting, a lighting controller, which does it, and a stage floor refinish. that we can absorb in our regular maintenance funds as time goes on. Did I say that right, John?
We have staff.
It's outside the contract, it can just be handled by us rather than put through the.
Bidding process and everything.
We
Would
hope to
that,
do
would
some
that
of
be
that
done
in
at the
this.
same time?
We're gonna try to do some of it early,
Okay,
or at the stage 4 finished, they'll do after, so that they don't have any damage in there, but
okay.
other than that, the lighting, we'd like to get that done ahead of time.
So that will be proceeding.
Cool.
We then talked about, actually, there's a big, more than anything, the vacant administration building that everybody thinks would like to see go away. And the discussion, and I don't think we really said a definitive answer, just thoughts is, there is the hub of the ICN network in that building. That's why that building has to stay there. It's a shared thing. At some point, that's gonna have to go somewhere else, or some point, have to change the building. But we're kind of required to give a year's notice to them that we want to do something. And the discussion was with no real resolution. Let's kick that year in now, so we can get rid of this thing at some point. But apparently there's some other things that have to be considered to that too, so I don't know if that can be decided.
Yeah, Ray, you've had the most conversations with ICN. I know we've let them know that at some point we plan to do something with that. And I think they had potentially looked at other sites or cost to move it, which was gonna be pretty high, but what's the latest with ICN in terms of how it impacts?
So we have talked to them about that, and I think they were estimating, it could cost as much as $250,000 to move their site. So it's gonna be pretty costly, but pretty much, it really is the hub of Warren County. Other schools in Warren County get their internet service through there. There are some emergency services that get their connection through there, so it's definitely, we're gonna need to give them some warning. We've even talked about what it would look like if we let them stay on that property. They had asked about building a compound, so to speak, on that property, and maybe moving it a little bit to, just so it's not right in the middle of that property. That's another option they had discussed with us, or even using a different property of ours. I know there's a property across from the ag building that we purchased. We've talked a little bit about maybe we could do something there as well.
Right now they rent from us?
I think it was just an agreement. I don't believe there's any rent involved. And that's how it is for, I think, probably every school that has an ICN FOTS.
And who is they?
The ICN network,
Yeah, the ICN,
which is owned by the state yet.
the Iowa Communications Network.
So we're dealing with the state. But that has to be resolved before the building can come down.
Okay.
And then the other thing Bernie reported was that the security camera project should be completed by the end of January.
I saw they were down there working by the gym the other day. Guys in there, they were putting up cameras.
Yeah, they've made a lot of progress on cameras, I can tell you that as well. So I know they were originally saying the end of December, but that wasn't very realistic. So I think the end of January is definitely a better timeline there.
Next is the facilities project update. We just kind of talked about the security cameras.
Pretty much talked about all of it.
And all three, yeah. All right. We are on to the policy committee meeting report. And Art, you said that this one we were looking at doing.
Yeah, just wait, there's several in here that were retired that pertain to Coronavirus Response Act, which is since expired, and then some others, like, for instance, the 804.3 with bomb threats, that's outlined in the Security Operations Emergency Plan. And the other one he retired is the stock ephedrine auto injector supply. That's something that isn't really relevant with the nursing staff right now, so there's no sense having a policy on something they don't regularly do. There are several in there that covered the use of restraints inclusion of students, and those need to be in policy by, was it January 20th?
Correct, yes.
So, nothing, I don't think either Ken or I had any issues, and I guess we would suggest that we waive the first reading, go ahead.
On those physical restraints and all that, we have some of the people that are like special education associates that might have to use force and stuff. Have they looked at some of these policies?
Yeah, and there's new training components too that just have been posted by the AEA as well, and that's something Sarah Baker, she's already updated our administrative team on the changes. Within these policies are the specific forms we need to use to report in every building.
Okay.
And then there are, the legislation has follow-up communication and training components to it too.
So that's mainly where we get our policies from and sheets from. We go through a lot of those other organizations that put out this stuff.
Yeah, this
Okay.
particular area is very much driven by legislation.
Okay.
And then the AEA helps with the training component.
Perfect.
Okay.
So there's really kind of I mean, it's a little different recommendation than you usually get. Like Ben said, it'd be helpful to approve the first reading, waive the second, and then I don't think I've asked you recently to retire policies. There's 4 policies to be retired too, and you could either, I think you could probably do that in one motion or 2, but that's what we're asking for tonight, policies.
Letter B there on that page, is that give the first reading, waive the second, and then in the motion, is that what they're
Yep.
needing to say?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll take a stab at the motion. I'll move that we approve, okay, let's see if I can do this right, approve the first reading of the policies listed on the material we have, and the removal of the 4 that are so notified, and also waive the second reading.
Motion made by Ken,
I'll second that.
seconded by Ben. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And then next is your board calendar.
HR tomorrow, curriculum Thursday.
Can you, thank you. Can you slow down? So we scroll back up 1 second.
Okay. Any questions on anything else?
You mean
Next board
other?
agenda?
Not agenda, but another. Just have we reached out and invited in the new Representative Bowden, I think was her name?
I haven't done that. Would you like to a board meeting, to school?
Just
Yep.
somebody talk to her, catch her up to date, what we need. It doesn't have to be here, I mean.
Okay.
Because she probably won't know anything.
Yeah, I've reached out to her by email and just written her written her a congratulatory card, and she was on the Warren County Legislative Luncheon the other day and talking to area people, but certainly extended an invitation to her.
Give her the good old Robin Art show, that'd be good, impressed her.
I talked to
I
her a
haven't
few
even-
weeks ago.
Yeah, I have a
but that
meeting
was
with
it.
her.
She is kind of making the rounds, talking to different entities, so.
Cool.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Ben to adjourn,
Second.
seconded by Ken. All Those in favor say aye.
I, hey, I would like to say this does work well. Once I got into the using my laptop versus the iPad. So just for future reference, you can hear people very well.
She go away?
Hey,
I
Carolyn.
think she will.
Yeah,
Okay. You could hear everybody pretty well then?
yeah. I actually really could. It was very clear. The picture I get is really tiny for some reason, but that's okay. But I can really see the presentation. But the video of the people in the room is kind of,